In the beginning of the story, an old man initiates the events. A young boy named Roland performs a magical spell, murmuring a chant. Observing this, the old man grins and thinks that if he feeds Roland a few more doses of the magical power inducer, the human body transmutation experiment will be a success. He instructs Melissa to give the bottle to Roland. Trembling, Melissa, who is Roland's sister, hands the bottle to him. The old man explains to Roland that the potion will not taste good, but you should bear with it and drink it. Meanwhile, the maid Karina reflects on the situation, recognizing the potion as a magical power inducer. She wonders when Rank started feeding Roland the inducer, recalling that in the story, continued consumption of the potion leads to the replacement of human blood with the deep blue liquid of the magical power inducer. Melissa fears giving the bottle to Roland and hesitantly addresses him. Karina wonders if today could be that day from the story, muttering in disbelief that it can't be. Reflecting on the gravity of the situation, she realizes that if today is indeed that day, the events that occur will be irrevocable. In a sudden burst of panic, Karina lunges forward and screams, calling out to the young master. She pushes the bottle, causing it to shatter and spill the magical power inducer on the floor. Roland and Elisa are shocked by the sudden turn of events. The old man, Rank, becomes angry and demands an explanation from Karina. She apologizes, addressing him as "my lord." Rank warns her that if she interrupts his experiment again, he will cut off one of her limbs, to which she responds with another apology. Frustrated, Rank sighs and declares her utterly useless, ending the experiment for the day before leaving the room. In the room, Roland calls out to Karina, while Melissa worries about her getting scolded because of them. Karina smiles and reassures them not to worry, asking if they are all right and unhurt. Roland and Melissa confirm they are fine. Karina pats their heads, expressing her relief and telling them that it's enough for her. She advises them to get some rest and mentions that she will take her leave. However, Roland grasps Karina's dress, prompting her to address him as Lord Roland. Roland hesitantly asks if she could stay with them a little longer. Melissa is concerned, but Roland quickly changes his mind, acknowledging that Karina is busy and they shouldn't bother her. Karina reflects on the situation, realizing that this is the first time Roland has approached her first, likely scared by what just happened. She acknowledges to herself that they can't continue like this. Smiling, Karina assures Lord Roland and Lady Melissa to wait for a moment, promising to return shortly before leaving the room. Once outside, Karina looks anxious and thinks about how, now that she knows Rank is feeding Roland inducers, she can't stay with the children any longer. Determined, she resolves that they must escape this hell before the children suffer anymore. In the story, Karina has entered the male lead. Roland and his younger sister, Melissa, are the children of Rank's late younger sister. Rank took the children in because both of them were magically talented. Unfortunately, Roland's talents were extraordinary, which only fueled Rank's greed. He harbored a dark desire to raise Roland into an archmage so that he could rule the world. Whenever Roland disobeyed him, Rank would punish Melissa instead. The punishments Rank inflicted on Melissa were unfathomably cruel, and she passed away after a few years. Without being given any time to grieve his sister's death, Roland had to continue training to become an archmage. Several years later, Roland became one of the greatest archmages in the Empire. But on the night he saved the Empire from a calamity that would have devoured the world, he viciously murdered Rank. But even after Rank's death, Roland couldn't stop blaming himself for Melissa's death. His life was filled with nothing but endless pain and misery. This was the plot of the story that Karina had read in her past life. While reading it, she could only think of one thing, but when she woke up in the story, she had already forgotten most of the plot. This wasn't surprising, of course, as that story was merely one of the countless romance fantasy stories she had read in her previous life. Nevertheless, when she saw the children's bright smiles and heard them calling out to her, she realized something important. Karina understood that she had reincarnated into this world to make these children happy. After that realization, she secretly started to prepare to escape the manor with the children. Karina springs into action, thinking she has to have everything ready so they can make a run for it whenever the opportunity arises. She has siphoned off food and living expenses behind Rank's back, steadily collecting funds for their escape. She plans for them to head to the capital, Edinburgh, one of the farthest cities from the manor and with a large population, making it their best option. Now she has finally finished preparing to leave this place. Considering their escape, she knows that Rank takes a nap from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., giving them only 3 hours when the magical minions don't move about. She has already spent 2 hours packing, leaving them with just 1 hour to make their escape. Karina realizes she has to escape the manor with the children within the hour. They are tight on time, but she believes they will be able to leave safely if everything goes as planned. They must ensure that no one finds out about their plan, because if they get caught, neither the children nor she will survive. She knocks on the room door and asks if she may come in. Roland responds affirmatively, flustered, and tells Melissa that they must do more training and that they need to get ready quickly because their uncle hates waiting. Karina reassures them that they are not going to rank. Melissa beams and asks if Karina is there to play with them, and if their uncle has given her permission. Roland, nervous, asks if it is true that Karina is going to spend time with them. Karina reflects with gritted teeth, thinking that they are just children who crave love. She tells Lord Roland and Lady Melissa that she knows a safe place and urges them to leave the manor together right now, warning them that Rank will soon carry out another human body transmutation experiment. Melissa, fearful, asks if that means they will be scolded and punished again. Karina expresses her desire to leave the manor with them before that happens. Melissa, stammering, agrees to follow Karina. Roland, hesitant, points out that their uncle wouldn't just let them go. Karina explains her idea, addressing the children's ability to secretly create a homunculus before. She assures them she's not here to reprimand them, but rather to propose using one to escape the manor, outlining her plan. Reflecting on the situation, Karina understands that the children cannot leave the manor unaccompanied by Rank. Her plan involves using a homunculus, an artificial human created by mages. She notes that creating a homunculus spell requires intense focus without rest and is risky. Failure can result in death, which makes the practice forbidden. However, these children have a natural talent for creating and controlling homunculi, largely thanks to Roland's potential to become an archmage. Despite this potential, Roland is hesitant and fearful of using magic. Karina asks Roland and Melissa to create a homunculus that looks like Rank so they can use it to leave the manor. Roland responds uneasily, expressing his willingness to try for Karina, but admitting he is scared. Melissa, however, shows confidence in Karina's plan and assures Roland they can do it. It's noted that Melissa is enthusiastic about using magic, which is a positive aspect of their endeavor. Roland agrees to proceed, reassured by Melissa's support and their past success. Melissa hugs him, reminding him that they succeeded last time they worked together. Karina directs them, stating that if they create and control the homunculus, she will handle the talking. Internally, Karina reminds herself that there's no time for sentimentality. She needs to stay focused on the task at hand. Karina wastes no time and suggests they begin immediately, due to their limited time. She informs them that she has already prepared the necessary ingredients for creating a homunculus. Melissa asks Roland if he's ready, to which he hesitantly replies, yes. Together, Roland and Melissa begin the process to create the Rank homunculus, and surprisingly, they succeed on their first attempt. Karina, nervous but impressed, reflects that the homunculus looks just like Rank, making it difficult for most people to distinguish between them. Melissa becomes ecstatic, exclaiming to Roland that they did it perfectly on their first try. Roland smiles and congratulates Melissa on their success. Karina praises both of them for their excellent work and urges them to leave quickly, while Rank is still napping, emphasizing that this is their only chance. Roland and Melissa agree eagerly, ready to proceed with their escape plan. Rank's homunculus moves ahead, followed closely by Karina, Roland, and Melissa. As they proceed, the butler approaches Rank's homunculus nervously. Karina, observing the situation, reassures herself that everything will be fine if she acts calmly. The butler addresses Rank's homunculus, asking if he is going out and offering to prepare the carriage if he states his destination. However, the homunculus remains silent, causing the butler to become increasingly anxious. Stepping in decisively, Karina clears her throat to draw attention away from the awkward silence. She fabricates a story informing the butler that Lord Rank cannot speak at the moment due to side effects from a spell. She claims they are heading to the forest to find an herb that will counteract the spell's effects. With a cold look, Karina presses the butler, emphasizing the urgency of their mission and warning that delaying will worsen the side effects. Flustered, the butler quickly agrees and promises to have the carriage waiting at the rear of the manor. Taking advantage of the distraction, Karina leads Roland and Melissa away, swiftly leaving the manor behind as they make their escape. Karina breathes a sigh of relief, celebrating internally that she managed to deceive the butler without raising suspicion. However, she remains vigilant, knowing they won't be safe until they leave the city entirely. She gathers Roland and Melissa and informs them that the family emblem on the carriage might give them away, so they decide to leave it behind. Once they reach the town, they plan to quickly find a faster carriage to another city. Meanwhile, Rank's homunculus begins to crumble, signaling that the spell's time limit is up. Roland alerts Karina to this, prompting her to agree that they need to hurry. Internally, Karina reflects on their timing, realizing they left the manor with about an hour of Rank's nap time remaining. She knows that he may have woken up by now. Karina instructs Roland and Melissa to hold her hands tightly as they navigate through the streets towards a carriage. They approach a driver and inquire urgently about carriages departing for Edmure, hoping for an immediate departure. The driver yawns and informs them that there are no carriages heading to Edmure today. Karina is taken aback by this news and begins to express her concern when Melissa interrupts, nervously pointing out something nearby. Karina turns to see a man who she recognizes as one of Rank's minions, Realizing the danger, Karina becomes worried that Rank has already noticed their disappearance and sent his minions after them. She insists they must leave immediately to avoid capture. Karina urgently asks about a carriage that is preparing to leave and inquires about its destination. The driver informs her that it is headed for Torres. Despite their original plan to go to Edmure, Karina decides they will take this carriage. The driver is puzzled, questioning Karina's change of destination. Karina insists they must hurry, emphasizing the urgency of their situation. The driver hesitates but agrees, mentioning that the carriage is already full and it will have to ride in the luggage compartment. Karina beams with relief and gratitude, expressing that it's perfectly fine with them. She thanks the driver profusely for accommodating them. They settle into the luggage compartment of the carriage, relieved and feeling safe. Karina praises Melissa and Roland for their success, assuring them they will be leaving the town soon, allowing them to finally relax. Both children become visibly happy and ask each other if they successfully escaped Uncle Rank without getting caught. Roland wonders if they will no longer be forced to practice magic. Karina confirms their freedom from such obligations, reassuring them that they won't have to endure those hardships anymore. Reflecting on their escape, Karina feels a sense of relief and accomplishment. She believes that the children will now have the chance to live happy lives, unlike the fate they faced in the original story. Roland shares his joy with Melissa, emphasizing that they no longer have to fear being scolded. As the carriage begins its journey with a forceful start, causing them to wobble, Karina's thoughts race. She recalls the name Torres from the stories she once read, her mind racing to connect the dots. She remembers that Duke Claude Torres was the second person Roland needed to avoid to lead a happy life. In the story, Duke Torres was infamous for aggressively recruiting talented individuals by any means necessary, earning himself the nickname Talent Fanatic. He had a particular obsession with recruiting Archmage Roland, who consistently refused his offers. This rejection led the Duke to develop a deep grudge against Roland. Karina recalls how Duke Torres would relentlessly pursue Roland, picking fights with him whenever he settled into a new residence. This cruel behavior persisted for decades. People avoid getting close to Roland because he is constantly in conflict with the Duke. Consequently, Roland has to live in solitude for the rest of his life. This isn't the life Roland desires. If Duke Torres ever recognizes Roland's talent, Roland's happiness will be destroyed. They arrive in Torres, and Melissa excitedly points out the many interesting things around them. Roland detects a delicious smell nearby. Karina laughs at their enthusiasm. Internally, Karina notes how energetic the children are despite the week-long carriage journey. She's relieved they've safely reached Torres, though the journey costs more than expected. Concern sets in as she realizes expenses will likely be higher in the capital. With only about 100 kivrin left, she worries they might end up on the streets unless she finds a way to earn more money. Reflecting on the original story, Karina recalls that Duke Torres and Roland's meeting occurred much later. She acknowledges that the Duke's interest lies in recruiting Roland as an archmage, not as the 8-year-old boy he currently is. Determined, Karina clenches her fists, deciding she has no choice but to find a job and save money to eventually leave for the capital. It's her only viable option at this point. Karina crouches down before Melissa and Roland. She explains that they won't be going to Edmure immediately, as they don't have enough money to travel there right away. Instead, she suggests they stay in Torres for the time being until she can save up enough money. Melissa questions her about their plans for Edmure, to which Karina pats Melissa reassuringly and confirms they will delay their journey. She asks them if staying in Torres and waiting until she saves enough money sounds like a good plan. Both Melissa and Roland enthusiastically agree, showing their support for Karina's decision. They arrive at the inn where the owner informs them it costs 10 kivrin for one night. Karina is surprised, mentioning the sign outside indicated 5 kivrin. The owner clarifies that the lower price is for one person, but since they are children, he charges for only 2. Karina pays him and accepts the explanation. Curious about their relationship, the owner asks how she is related to the kids and mentions he can't let them stay without knowing. Karina hesitates briefly but decides to say she is their mother to avoid suspicion. The owner stares at her skeptically, commenting that the children don't resemble her at all but allows them to stay in a room at the end of the corridor. Karina apologizes to Roland and Melissa for stating that she was their mother without consulting them first, explaining that she did it to avoid suspicion. She expresses concern about being mistaken for kidnapping them in similar situations in the future and asks if it would be acceptable for her to continue pretending to be their mother. Roland readily agrees, saying it sounds great to him, while Melissa beams with joy, expressing her long-standing wish for Karina to be their mom. Roland adds that he, too, thought it would be nice to have Karina as their mother. Karina blushes shyly, realizing how fond they are of her and feeling touched by their words. Melissa enthusiastically asks if they can call her mom from now on. Karina's heart swells with happiness and she excitedly hugs them, assuring them they can indeed call her mom from now on. Roland and Melissa lie in bed as Karina tells Melissa to stay and rest. Melissa asks where Karina is going, to which Karina replies that she's going to look around for job openings. Karina instructs Melissa not to open the door for anyone else while she's gone. Melissa smiles and agrees. Karina meets various people for job interviews. She encounters responses like, "You're raising 2 kids on your own," and concerns about taking time off if the kids get sick. She faces rejection repeatedly, having been turned down 10 times already. She reaches a jewelry shop, feeling that this is her last opportunity. Karina nervously entered the jewelry shop and inquired about a job opening. The old man questioned her ability to differentiate between a ruby and a garnet, emphasizing his requirement for someone experienced with gems. Despite Karina's plea that she could learn quickly, the old man expressed his need for an immediate contributor and declined to teach her. Disappointed, Karina accepted his decision. Just then, someone arrived and called out to the old man, Wilder, asking him to reassess a magic crystal. Wilder responded that he would be there shortly, addressing the person as Your Grace. Meanwhile, Karina let out a tired sigh, thinking she should call it a day. As she glanced around, she noticed a gem gleaming. Intrigued, she wondered what it was, finding it sparkly yet strange, unlike a regular stone. She couldn't look away from it. Suddenly, Wilder noticed Karina reaching towards the gleaming stone and shouted at her to step back immediately. Karina's hand seemed to move on its own towards the stone, and she reflected that she felt bewitched. Wilder yelled in frustration, demanding to know what she was doing. Karina grabbed the stone and threw it on the floor, causing it to shatter and emit a bright light that enveloped her. She collapsed, feeling the intense heat as if her whole body was burning. The man who had arrived earlier at the shop leaned over and lifted Karina, gently splashing water on her face. As she regained consciousness, Karina wondered what was happening, feeling something cool against her skin. She questioned if someone had poured water on her. The handsome man asked her if she was all right. Karina gasped in surprise, reflecting on who this person holding her could be. Startled, she shoved him away, causing him to tumble to the floor. Wilder, alarmed, addressed the man as Your Grace, asking if he was okay. The man confronted Karina, expressing his displeasure at being pushed after saving her. Karina, embarrassed, quickly apologized. She was bewildered by the situation, questioning if the gem she had touched had exploded. The man explained that he had prevented an eruption that would have otherwise caused her body to shatter, along with damaging the shop. He chastised Wilder for displaying such a dangerous gemstone openly. Karina was shocked to hear about the potential eruption. Wilder tried to explain that he had tried to send her away, but the man interrupted, frustrated that Wilder hadn't understood the danger. Karina overheard Wilder becoming anxious and realized he had referred to the man as Your Grace. The man, Duke Torres, remarked that he forgot to introduce himself and asked Karina for her name. This encounter marks a significant change in Karina's fate. She hesitantly replied, "I'm Karina Blewett." Duke Torres expressed unfamiliarity with her last name. Karina explained that she had recently moved to the city from another place. She wondered to herself why Duke Torres would appear at an ordinary jewelry shop. In the original story, it is said that Duke Torres is responsible for all the difficulties Roland faces after reaching adulthood. Commoners reportedly avoid Roland due to his frequent conflicts with Duke Torres, while nobles and royals are said to be eager to enlist him into their ranks. This is supposedly because of rumors that he is exceptionally talented, a reputation attributed to Duke Torres, who is known as a talent fanatic. Allegedly, established mages even engage in conflicts among themselves in attempts to recruit Roland to their factions. Consequently, Roland is said to have moved further away from the life he envisioned, which was a simple existence surrounded by loved ones, something he reportedly desired more than anything else. Karina worries, thinking that if Roland becomes involved with the Duke, he will face similar misery again. Therefore, she decides to avoid anything remotely associated with the Duke and considers leaving the place immediately. She bows to the Duke and thanks him for saving her, expressing her intention to depart. The Duke interrupts her, causing Karina to flinch. He mentions overhearing her conversation and inquires if she is seeking employment. Karina confirms this but explains that Wilder is seeking someone knowledgeable about gems. She then requests to excuse herself. Wilder is flustered as he recalls Madame Blewett's need to find employment for her children. He offers to pay her a decent wage sufficient for raising her kids. The Duke wonders about the mention of children earlier. Wilder specifies the offer, 900 kivrin per month, emphasizing that it's a rare sum in their neighborhood. Karina wonders if 900 kivrin would be enough for them, but she worries about the potential consequences if Roland were to encounter the Duke because of her. Despite the tempting offer, she politely declines, stating that she doesn't believe she is suited for the job and bids them farewell. Wilder calls out to Karina, urging her to wait. The plates are empty as they excuse themselves. Melissa exclaims that she's finished, and Roland remarks how full he is. When Melissa's stomach growls, she lies, claiming it's strange since she's stuffed. Karina calls her name in concern, prompting Melissa to hurriedly declare that she'll brush her teeth and insists Roland join her. They both leave the room. Karina, feeling gloomy, reflects on the situation, realizing Melissa knows they are short of money and can't even admit she's hungry. She worries that they will soon starve at this rate. She recalls Wilder's words about paying a monthly salary of 900 kivrin. Karina reflects that this amount is sufficient to buy plenty of food and cover their journey to the capital. She realizes that with this salary, she would never have to take the children to the jewelry shop. Karina tells Roland and Melissa that she forgot to buy food yesterday and will go get some right away. Roland and Melissa become happy, asking her to bring back something yummy. Karina wonders if she can work for a short while without anything happening, believing that Roland will never encounter the Duke if she's careful enough. Karina goes to Wilder, who is surprised to see her and exclaims, "Madame Blewett." The Duke is also present, making Karina nervous. She acknowledges the Duke, thanking him for yesterday while internally wondering why he is there again and if he isn't busy. The Duke tells her to stop saying thank you, as she said it enough yesterday, and asks what brings her here again. Wilder wonders if she has changed her mind. Karina asks if the job offer is still open. Wilder confirms enthusiastically, and Karina inquires if he will really be paying her 900 kivrin a month. Wilder assures her he will and invites her to sit down and sign the contract. Karina states that she will sign the contract on 2 conditions. First, she wants an explanation for the eruption yesterday and asks if the stone she touched was a magic crystal. She expresses her concern about being unable to work there if such incidents happen again, as her death or injury would leave her children uncared for. She insists on getting the facts straight about why it happened. Wilder hesitates, but the Duke interjects, explaining that the eruption was not her fault and blaming Wilder for leaving such a dangerous item unattended. Karina, puzzled, asks for clarification. Wilder admits that the Duke is right, acknowledging his carelessness in not anticipating that anyone around him could trigger an eruption. Karina asks why the incident happened to her. The Duke explains that it occurred because she has the potential to become a mage. He elaborates that the eruption was a mage's eruption, which happens in 3 scenarios. First, when a mage casts a spell beyond their skill level and gets overwhelmed. Second, when they ignore the restrictions associated with using magic. And third, when they fail to tame a magic crystal that has gone out of control. He clarifies that what happened to Karina was the 3rd case, where the magic crystal erupted after being exposed to her mana for a certain period of time. Karina insists that she didn't use magic yesterday and has never learned it. The Duke explains that this is why he said she has the potential to become a mage. He clarifies that even those born with talent need extensive training and practice to become mages. In Taurus, no one has magical power and very few people are born with the talent to become mages. Wilder acknowledges the Duke's point, admitting he let his guard down. He assures Karina that if she starts working there, he will strictly manage the magic crystals to prevent any future incidents, promising that what happened yesterday will not happen again. Karina sets her 2nd condition. If she wants to quit, they must allow her to do so immediately without asking any questions. Wilder begins to protest about the abruptness of such a condition, but the Duke interjects, agreeing to seal the deal and confidently asserting that Wilder will treat her so well that she won't want to quit. Wilder nervously agrees, laughing. Karina, feeling reassured, accepts their offer and asks what she should do first. The Duke responds that he has some items for her to examine and signals to Wilder. Wilder acknowledges and places a box on the table, explaining that they have acquired 15 unbalanced magic crystals. He expresses concern about how long it will take to appraise all of them. Karina reflects on the term unbalanced magic crystals, realizing that although Rank dealt with many types of crystals, she has never heard of unbalanced ones. Wilder instructs her to take a closer look, explaining that this will be her task from now on. She agrees and examines the stones, noticing one of them glimmering. Startled, she exclaims, catching the Duke's attention, who asks if she sees anything. Wilder dismisses her reaction, stating that all these types of crystals look the same. The Duke interrupts him, addressing Karina directly and noting that she seems to have noticed something. Karina picks up the glimmering stone and reveals that only one of the crystals is a magic crystal. Wilder is astonished and asks if she can sense that immediately. Karina confidently states that the real magic crystal is the one she picked. The Duke, smiling, reflects that she has a natural talent for identifying real magic crystals and confirms his belief that she is gifted. He thanks her and mentions that he should go examine the crystal she identified, leaving Wilder to work on the rest. Wilder is exasperated, protesting about the workload, but the Duke leaves anyway. Wilder sighs, acknowledging that he has his work cut out for him, but concedes that the Duke has a good eye, recognizing Karina's talent. He welcomes her to the team, and Karina, pleased, shakes his hand and thanks him. A week has passed since Karina started working at the jewel shop. She finds the work manageable. Besides doing chores, her main task is to learn about general gemstones like rubies and garnets from Wilder. However, he hasn't provided her with detailed information about magic crystals. Instead, he asks her to examine them and give her opinion. While sweeping the floor, Karina mumbles Duke Tor's name and wonders about his close relationship with Wilder, which troubles her. Wilder hears her and questions why she mentioned the Duke. Startled, Karina hastily responds that she was just noting his absence over the past few days, even though she has no business with him. Wilder speculates that the Duke is probably busy struggling with the unbalanced magic crystal he took the other day. He mentions that ever since the Duke was young, he would lose track of time when studying magic crystals. Karina reflects on this, realizing that Wilder and the Duke must have known each other for a long time. Wilder then tells Karina that she's done enough cleaning for the day and asks her to come over and explain what she can sense from the magic crystals. She agrees eagerly. After some time, Wilder is pleased and praises her ability to identify magic crystals at first glance, affirming that she is indeed gifted. He predicts that in 3 years she will be able to open her own shop that is much larger than their current one. Karina hesitantly asks if Wilder means she could become a magic crystal merchant. Wilder clarifies that he envisions her as a magic merchant, explaining that while being a magic merchant is a good career, the downside is dealing with grim people like mages. Karina inquires if Duke Torres is also a mage. Wilder begins to respond, revealing that the Duke is indeed a mage, but is interrupted by the sound of the entrance jingle. Karina turns and welcomes the new customer, only to see that it is the Duke. The Duke remarks that they meet again, and Wilder notes the perfect timing, mentioning that they were just talking about him. The Duke, curious, glances at Karina, who flinches and explains that his name came up during their conversation about magic crystals. The Duke acknowledges this and comments that he indeed arrived at the right time. The Duke hands a pouch to Wilder. Wilder, surprised, asks if it is from the Imperial family. The Duke confirms, expressing that it is causing him a real headache. Wilder grumbles, pointing out that he will be the one suffering from it. The Duke questions this, but Wilder quickly changes the subject, handing the pouch to Karina and asking her to examine it. Karina immediately senses something dangerous from the pouch. Wilder inquires if she senses anything, and Karina warns that it is dangerous. She explains that it feels like the magic crystal she encountered when she first arrived at the shop and predicts that it will soon erupt. The Duke, alarmed, quickly snatches the pouch from her, cursing under his breath. The Duke takes the crystal out of the pouch, exclaiming how the Imperial family could give him such a dangerous crystal. As the crystal gleams, Wilder instructs Karina to look closely, pointing out that this moment reveals the Duke's true identity. The Duke clenches the crystal in his fist, prompting Karina to wonder if he can do something with magic crystals beyond traditional magic, since he doesn't seem to be a typical mage. As the Duke opens his fist, a flash appears, transforming the crystal into something else. Karina notices something in his hand, and suddenly the crystal bursts, filling the room with smoke. Coughing, she wonders where all the smoke came from so suddenly. As the smoke clears, she spots something in the Duke's hand and realizes, astonished, that it is a sword. The Duke smiles, satisfied, saying that it worked this time. Wilder questions what he means by this time. The Duke explains that he previously tried to pull a magic sword out of the magic crystal that reacted to Madame Blewett but failed. Wilder scolds the Duke, emphasizing the need for caution. The Duke dismisses the concern, noting that he only makes mistakes a couple of times a year at most. Wilder retorts that if anything happens, he will be the one to pick up the pieces. The Duke, slightly admonished, acknowledges Wilder's frequent lectures. He then turns his thoughts to Karina, realizing that she knew the magic crystal could become a sword at first glance. He muses that she might be even more gifted than he initially thought. The Duke expresses his gratitude to Karina, acknowledging that she was a huge help in preventing the Emperor's magic crystal from exploding, and offers to reward her. Karina modestly declines but asks to hear about what happened instead. The Duke, surprised but compliant, asks if that would be sufficient for her. She agrees, although internally she admits she wouldn't refuse a reward if he insisted. The Duke chuckles and reveals that he needs to disclose his identity first, stating that he is a magic knight. Wilder interjects, noting that the Duke's explanation is too brief and questions why the Duke is striking a pose. Irritated, the Duke explains that he was about to elaborate. Karina silently wonders about the nature of Wilder's relationship with the Duke, given Wilder's casual manner of addressing him. The Duke explains that magic knights are individuals who can draw magic swords from magic crystals. He adds that experienced knights can wield these swords even without inherent magical abilities, likening their role to that of blacksmiths. Karina confirms, asking if this means they can transform magic crystals into magic swords, and inquires if the sword is simply an object made of concentrated mana. The Duke affirms this. However, Karina points out that she can sense a significant amount of dangerous magic from the sword. Surprised, the Duke hands the sword to Wilder, instructing him to keep it in a safe place. Wilder promptly agrees, acknowledging the Duke's command. The Duke approaches Karina and expresses that despite meeting many gifted individuals, he has never encountered anyone like her. Karina, flustered, responds that it is an honor. The Duke, determined, states that missing this opportunity would be something his late parents would never forgive him for. Grabbing her hand, he implores her to accept his offer. Karina, confused, stammers, asking what he means. The Duke formally asks if she would become a retainer of House Torres. Karina is astonished, internally questioning why he would want her to become his retainer, especially given his dramatic pose that resembles a marriage proposal. She reflects on the fact that typically, one would need to be the daughter of a knight to attain such a position and wonders why he is making this offer when he knows so little about her. The Duke earnestly asks again if Karina will accept his offer. Karina hesitates, expressing her concern about how a commoner like her could serve him. The Duke laughs, reassuring her that this is not a problem. He explains that half of his retainers are commoners, as many of the nobles from Torres have moved to the capital, viewing this region as a countryside or vacation spot. He adds that Wilder, who wasn't even a knight, used to be a retainer of House Torres and assisted his parents for a long time, knowing him since he was young. The Duke reiterates his offer, asking if she is willing to accept now. Karina, feeling gloomy, mentions that she has children to take care of. The Duke insists that working for him would enable Karina to provide better care for her children, emphasizing a higher salary. Karina, however, expresses concern about the many duties that come with being a Duke's retainer, fearing she wouldn't have enough time to spend with her kids. Reflecting on this, she realizes that she cannot accept the offer. She bows respectfully and declines, thanking the Duke for the offer. Surprised, the Duke asks for her reasons. Karina explains that she cannot swear her loyalty to him because her children must come first. The Duke understands, acknowledging that her decision is driven by her commitment to her children. The Duke reassures Karina that he was joking about her possibly wanting to avoid him. Karina, relieved, wonders if her discomfort around him was noticeable. The Duke then asks about her children, causing Karina to be momentarily dazed. She reflects on how handsome he looked when he smiled, perplexed by her own reaction. Before she can fully process, the Duke continues, asking if her children enjoy attending school. Startled by this sudden change in topic, Karina affirms that they do, but then pauses in confusion. Interrupting their conversation, Wilder addresses the Duke, reminding him that Karina used to live in the mountains and doesn't know much about Torres. Duke questions whether children in rural areas are required to attend school, prompting Wilder to explain that in many regions, this requirement isn't strictly enforced. He then informs Karina that in Torres there are institutions called schools specifically for children whose families cannot afford private tutors. Karina responds with a surprised "oh" outwardly, but internally reflects that these schools sound similar to the ones she attended in her previous life. Karina asks Duke what children learn at the schools in Torres, to which he responds with math and writing. Karina seems surprised and asks if that's all they learn. Duke defends the curriculum, questioning what else children should learn. Karina half-jokingly suggests difficult math formulas, reflecting internally that she learned about such things in her past life at school. However, Wilder laughs at her suggestion, explaining that parents would complain if schools taught such useless things that don't directly contribute to making a living. Karina chuckles awkwardly in response. In the night, Karina reaches her inn and reflects on the importance of children attending school and making friends their age. She decides to ask their thoughts about it. Pleased, she holds a bag of cookies she bought, intending to share them and discuss the matter together. As she enters her room, she calls out to Roland and Melissa excitedly. However, upon seeing the state of the room, Karina becomes alarmed and drops the bag of cookies. The room is a mess, looking as if it has been raided. Worried, Karina looks around frantically for children and calls out their names loudly. Karina begins to cry out in distress, realizing her children are missing. She fears that whoever raided the room may have taken them as well. Blaming herself for leaving them alone, she regrets not being there to protect them. In her anguish, Karina speculates that the only person who would kidnap her children is Renk. Karina hears a faint voice calling Mom, causing her to flinch, thinking it might be Roland. Rushing to the bathroom, she bursts open the door and finds Roland and Melissa looking messy and nervous. Relieved, Karina exclaims their names, visibly relieved that they are safe. Roland explains they were trying to clean up spilled flour. Karina collapses onto the floor in relief, repeating "thank goodness" and expressing gratitude that her children are unharmed. She realizes the mess was caused by flour batter and concludes that Renk did not take the kids. Roland and Melissa sob as they apologize for making a mess in the room and bathroom. Karina reassures them, saying she won't scold them, and asks them to explain what happened. Melissa explains that they wanted to bake tasty bread using magic, but it didn't turn out well because Uncle never taught them how to use magic for cooking. Karina hugs them both, understanding their situation. She reflects that Renk only taught them destructive magic, which explains their lack of skill in magic related to cooking. She had been worried that the kids might dislike using magic after their experiences, but she feels relieved that this isn't the case. Karina noticed something hidden behind Melissa's back and asked her about it. Melissa revealed it was a blanket that had gotten very dirty. Karina reassured her that she would wash the blanket and suggested that Roland and Melissa wash up first. Melissa agreed tearfully, and both children went to clean up.